Welcome to another episode of Rooms with Ronald. I'm your host, Ronald Harrington, and today I am joined by industry icon, data queen, Lia Nicole Smith, who is the Senior Vice President of Education and Performance at ApartmentRatings.com and Satisfacts. Lia, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I hope I live up to the icon status. We'll see.
All the time you do. But before we get started, I wanted to thank the sponsor of today's episode. Our sponsor today is AppWork. AppWork is one of our founding sponsors. Much more than maintenance, AppWork is advanced business intelligence, streamlining maintenance workflows, and keep an eye on the leaderboard as your service teams enjoy the gamification of maintenance. Visit appworkco.com. Again, that was appworkco.com and transform your productivity today. So Lia, I was so excited when I see the biennial report come out. And I know we had you and Carla join us on Chat APT not too long ago, but we didn't get to go over my favorite part of the study, which was the 2025 bold predictions. So today I really want to dive into these predictions and see how we can help set up our teams for success. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. You know what? That's actually my favorite part too. And I don't know if you noticed, but right before we got into the bold predictions, we gave like a timeline of all the things we predicted based on the data we've collected, the renters we talked to, and to like literally see like everything come to pass for our industry over the years. It's pretty exciting to kind of be in this seat. And again, we're not like, Nostradamus or, anything like that. We're just reading the numbers and making educated, predictions about what we think the future of multifamily is going to look like.
I mean, you have to be better than the weathermen, right? Like they're never right. So like I think your record is a little bit better than that.
Just a little bit. Yeah, just a
Just a
little
little bit. Alrighty, where do you want to start? What's your
bit.
favorite?
Start with number one. Yeah, we'll start with the first one.
Alrighty, so renters will be technology fluent.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of a no-brainer, right? I mean, I did a session at Apartmentalize last year. It was called Bold Predictions for 2025 and the Rise of the Homebody. That was the entire title. And the premise of that session was 2020 changed us as people. It changed our behaviors. It changed the way we did things, right? And so, like it or not, those of us who are maybe not as tech savvy, not as like with the times, we had no choice but to learn. A lot of us across the world had to learn technology very quickly because it was the only way we were going to be able to adapt to what was going on, keep connected, communicate. So if you think about someone who has embraced technology 4 years ago, that's how long we've been in here, right? With this whole thing. It really does make sense that renters, by and large, are going to be over that technology sort of hump. And you add to that Gen Z, who I absolutely love. I love that generation so much. And the fact that just by volume, we're starting to see more renters coming from that generation. Technology for most is going to become a basic expectation. Like I expect my property management company to have tech in place that just makes things easy. Not doesn't necessarily mean the bells and the whistles and having all the latest whatever the of the moment tech is. It's just whatever you have. I want to make sure it works. I want to make sure it makes my life easy, right? It makes my experience better as a renter, and that your people know how to use it. One of the things that I think our industry can really benefit from, there's a law called Martech's Law. I don't know if you've ever heard of it,
I've
but
heard of that.
yeah, it says, that people and technology move at an exponential rate, right? Like exponential, like really fast. But businesses tend to adapt at a logarithmic rate, like much slower. And so as technology, our knowledge goes up, but businesses are kind of, treading water. That's where you're starting to see that big gap. Like, I'm expecting you guys to keep up with me. So I think now, well, last year, because we talked about this last year, that was our warning, to start really developing those digital strategies and technology type of platforms. It just makes life easy for residents. And, we've gotten a little distracted with a lot of AI that we're hearing, and if you look at the report, our renters are not yet there because as consumers, they haven't experienced AI that makes their life easy. It's always been some kind of friction, going on there. So, yeah, by 2025, I think tech is going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people. And it could be something as simple as horrible, Wi-Fi service. I can't use, Wi-Fi on a consistent basis, or my cell signal only works in 2 rooms of my apartment. I think for leasing, that needs to be part of your tour, talking about that kind of stuff and, letting your prospect walk through the home, and looking at the cell strength, being aware that there are dead spots in those terrace level apartment homes, stuff like that, I think is going to be really important.
Well, I even think like there's cell issues in some high rises, in some like issues.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these different types. I'm like, I have one bar. I'm
Yeah.
just like, this isn't going to work for me. So, what I find very interesting is that I think we're seeing. So, I was very fortunate to start out multifamily with a company that was very student housing based. They had some conventional, but and I feel like the student housing market adapts to tech more quickly because they know that they have to. And as we see more and more, student housing properties built and more, on campus students going to that housing, I think that trend is also going to carry over when they leave because they're not going to know any difference, right? They're just their experience. It's kind of like I always tell like new leasing professionals in multifamily that come from student housing. I'm like, you have to really drill down and explain that you're no longer on an individual lease, right? Like, if we move in together and you don't pay your rent, I'm responsible. And I think like that's where also some frustration begins to happen is because these, new renters, Gen Z, they're so used to the student housing where everything's tech driven and that they don't understand, well, I lived in one apartment community. Why isn't it the same here?
Yeah, I agree. And you have to think about I love student housing. You look at them for trends, you look at them, how they're using social media. I mean, a lot of different things lessons can be learned, from student housing. And those renters eventually are going to age out of student housing and they're still going to be renting, but to your point, that experience that they've had sets the bar. And so they're not going to settle for anything less than what they've currently experienced. They'll take more.
Right. And
For
what's
sure.
so funny is like when we talk about tech and everything, so that I got an email today from a supplier that they did a study and they found that, and I don't know that I agree with this necessarily, but more people, the rise of in-person touring is coming back. And it was like 80% of people preferred an in-person tour versus like 10% who uh, did a virtual tour, who preferred like a live agent virtual tour, which I found a little odd, right? Especially when we start talking about Gen Z, because most people are still looking for that like virtual thing. I think it comes down to like on the virtual side is that as an industry, we haven't defined what a virtual tour means. And there's so many different inconsistencies from property to property that creates that friction among the renters. And now they're like, no, I just want to go back to an in person because I know what the expectation is.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's such a great point. It goes to a lot of tech stuff that we see. Renters are not behind it yet because they haven't had the experience where it worked, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have not had a virtual touring experience where everything went really well. Like, I didn't even need to go see the apartment. I mean, maybe the virtual part works well, but then they show up on move-in day and it's a different experience, you know? So once you have the norm become, you know, like it's a virtual tour and my move-in went great and I'm happy I picked this place. I think that's when you will start to see more of a demand. But to your point, renters right now are like, just take me back. Just take me back to the old way. At least, you know, I know what, you know, what I'm getting myself into.
Right. Absolutely. Alrighty. So let's move on to um, renters will demand the care of one.
Yeah, this is about hyper personalization. And this too comes out of the pandemic, where because you had so many people at home, you know, doing things in their four walls, you had companies that had to cater to that. Netflix got better with their recommendations, you know. Amazon Prime jumped on the bandwagon with, you know, here, let's pick up where you left off, or let's go ahead and introduce some new things based on, you know, what you've been watching in the past. You know, they call it their credit card companies. It's like, this number is registered to this account, or, you know, we have this bank account on file for you. It became a very personalized way of doing business. And so I do believe that renters are going to be expecting that level of personalization in their homes. Now, what does that look like? Doesn't necessarily, you know, look like they show up and you're like, oh, you're Lia, here's 5 apartments you're gonna love. No, what it means is, in terms of our marketing, we have to look at renters based on who they are as opposed to what they want. They already know what they want. They already know that your community has what they want because they've been doing the research, right? So as you're marketing and leasing, you want to talk about the experience of being a renter. You have someone who is a foodie, you know, you should be able to sell to a foodie in a much different way than someone who is very fitness conscious. They work out a lot. You know, you really need to market to the person. Like, who is this person and what kind of experience do they want at our community? I think a lot of leasing and the way that we've been doing it before, at least for me, has always been, here's what we have. Like, it's just what we have, as opposed to, here's what we have for you.
And you know, I think we can have the apartments ready if we've done our research on the prospect and we've actually talked to them. What I experience a lot of time when I'm shopping apartments is I book the appointment online and then no one contacts me
Mhm.
for my needs or wants until I show up. And then it's like a mad dash of like, ooh, let me get this ready. So I think like if we do some of that, you know, at the beginning phase, like I remember when I was on site in 2014, the company I worked for was very forward thinking, right? Like we bought a Matterport like for our office. And like, you know, that was like 2014, no one is even really doing Matterports. And we were incorporating video. Like we used
Yeah.
to do fun videos for residents. So like I remember there's this one like I will do anything for a laugh. Like once you put me on the stage, like I will do anything. And so like we had just opened up our tanning bed, like we built a new clubhouse. School was just getting out, and I remember doing this video for like 30 seconds of like me in like the tanning bed with like a Coke and a hot dog and a big like sun hat, like dancing to like school's out for the summer, you know, and like putting that on social media so people knew what that looked like. And what I find interesting is that you're saying 2025. I think it's kind of there already. And I think
Oh, yeah.
like it definitely expedited it. And I remember seeing like right after the world opened back up again, Cracker Barrel spent, you know, millions of dollars on this campaign and all these billboards. I love Cracker Barrel. I don't cook. That's where I go for a home cooked meal. I'm like, let me just go to Cracker Barrel. But it said secret ingredient, and we all know the real secret ingredients like butter and salt, but theirs was like they were selling care, secret
Mhm.
ingredient care, and it made for you know that whole like experience, and you knew that you were going to go get taken care of when you walked in.
Yeah, and if you think about, I do agree with you, we're already there. Well, when we're saying like 2025, 2025 is the make or break, right? Like if you do not have these things, When your renter shows up January 1st, 2025, you're already going to be behind the game, right? And we're seeing all of these things, like these trends are happening currently in our industry.
I think it's very like worthy to like note that in this study too, you talked about we are going to need to find talent that will stay, right? Because they are, wanting that personal connections. And our industry has a high turnover, which can make or break. Like I can tell, I've shopped up, like I moved into an apartment where I like, one day I talked to one leasing and then I go like a month later and that person's not there anymore, which creates
Yeah.
a whole different experience.
Yeah, because you can't provide hyper personalized care when there is every time you're trying to rebuild a relationship, introduce a new person. You cannot hyper personalize the experience if you're constantly trying to figure out who the renter is.
Yep, absolutely. Well, before we dive into our next prediction, let me just give a shout out to our sponsor, AppWork. So, our sponsor today is AppWork, best known for exceptional maintenance workflow management. AppWork offers so much more. Optimize operations with its advanced business intelligence that turns data into strategy. Simplify your operations with AppWork's intuitive platform. Service team members love the gamification of the maintenance workflows and leaderboards, making everyday tasks a competition for number one. From project management to team communication, AppWork has you covered. Visit appworkco.com. Again, visit appworkco.com today. All righty, Lia. So this one I really threw me for a loop. Number three, renters will be hyper tribalized.
Yeah. Hyper tribalized is they're looking for their people, right? They're looking for their tribe. They want people to live around people that have common interests. This is all about sense of community. And in the survey, in the study itself, we asked the importance of sense of community. And then we also asked those same renters to rate their current experience in terms of sense of community. And there's a huge gap between how important it is for someone and what they're currently getting. So when you have that big divide, what you have in that area, you have the potential to lose that resident because they aren't connected, right? They don't have a tribe that, they live among. So this is kind of going back to, it's an echo from hyper personalization, is really trying to create experiences for people based on who they are, what they like to do, what your community has to offer. It's really sense of community, I think, since the pandemic, and I promise I'm going to stop talking about 2020, but it changed so much, right?
Good.
I think sense of community again has shifted. Way back in my day when I was leasing, it was about the Sunday brunches, the pool parties, having opportunities to get people together to create a sense of community. Over time, it started to evolve into um, management connection. Like, do I feel connected to the management team? Do I feel like they're doing a great job because they want me to be here? Now it's a hybrid of both. It's, I want to feel as though I'm the most important person here, but I also want to feel like I live among people that are like me. Like we have a common interest to create a community together. So yeah, it's maybe the term might have thrown you, but you knew exactly what that
I
was about.
absolutely, and I think like we see it right, and I don't think as an industry like we do a great job at selling that sense of community. Like you might see a flyer for some resident events in an elevator, but that's it. They don't talk about like what it is, and like I think like photos of events are like you guys said, the stockpile your social currency with those authentic resident like feedback, right? Like even having those events so you can see, people having fun and like enjoying that. And what I see like on tours, and I hear this all the time in leasing training, is like, how do you respond when you're riding the elevator up? and like a resident gets on and like your prospect says like, so what's it like living here, and I'm like, they're always going to ask that because they want to know from someone else. They want, you to buy in. And I was like, it's out of your control, right? Like whatever that person says, like on the elevator, you just have to be prepared to respond with the good or the bad, like whatever that person says. And I think that's a hard time for people to like understand is like, but I don't want them to talk to any of the residents.
Well, they do it on their own, right? If they're
Right.
leaving your office and walking back to their car, you never know. They could bump into someone. And it really is like now, well, we'll go back to last year. It was the green light to start stockpiling that social currency, like make your residents those tribal leaders, allow them to have a voice when it comes to your social media. And you can't wait until 2025. You have to have a bank of this proof, right? You can't
Yep.
like it can't look like, oh, now this is important to us. It has to be historically laid out that this is something that's just part of our brand, who we are, so that when your renters start to look in those various places or ask, your residents their opinions, people aren't you're not worried about what your residents are going to say.
And I think like, if you're not asking, they're going to find ways to communicate with each other anyways, right? Like I can't tell you how many times like I've heard like there's a Facebook group, there's a group me app, like just in that community. And like, yeah, most of that's very bad. Like that's where they get bash, but like you have to get ahead of it. Like I think every community probably should have a resident council of some sort where like you go and you listen and like you have, these are the people that are truly invested. What events are you guys looking for this year? Like, what do you want to do? And
Yeah.
getting them brought into the process, I think will also help, with this prediction right here, because you will already know some people that you can go to.
I love that. And we used to put our colors up for a vote. Like the flowers, how you change
Yeah.
your flowers every season. We used to create polls and let residents pick. Like we don't care if you want yellow, orange, blue, whatever. We used to, put the events up for a vote. Which event do you want next month? It is creating that buy-in from your residents, So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. Again, it's all about social currency when you're thinking about renters being hyper tribalized. They want to find their people.
And make sure that, like, I always have to say this because I worked for a company that did not. Like, if you're taking photos at events, make sure that your lease has the photo addendum so you can actually use those photos. Like,
Yeah.
social media.
I remember how that used to be like such a like, oh, I never thought about that. But now, depending on, if you're using our standard type of leases, they're all the social addendum should already be in there.
Yep. Yep. I
Mhm.
just remember like in like going through like grade school and high school and like you had to fill that out like every year. Like your parents had to sign like if they could use your photo if like the paper was coming. So but I never at that time, like when I started multifamily, I never thought the correlation. I was like, oh, but now like I see like people do that.
Yeah, that's important. Super important. Because you have some where their privacy is like, don't
Right.
even think about it. Yeah.
Don't even like no photos, please. I'm like that some days. I'm like, okay, is the lighting good? I need to make sure. I travel with the ring light, so the lighting is always good. So let's dive into number 4, which will be renters will be conscientious consumers.
Yeah, this is all about ESG, right? And there's a whole section dedicated in the study, just speaking about, again, renters wanting that community, wanting to support businesses that extend out, and the importance of having that, not just a tag on your website, not just, a post during Pride Month or post during Black History Month or, Women's History Month. We're in the middle of that. But it's, really like living, breathing, who you say your brand is all about, and contributing, giving back, and making that known, making that plain and clear for your renters to see, so that they can incorporate that into their decisions when they're trying to weigh all of these different options that they have.
I think it's so funny that this is just now, like, within the last 4 years coming up into multifamily. So before came over to multifamily, I worked in hotels. And
Mm-hmm.
so hotels, we called it CSR, corporate social responsibility. And like it was a big push. And this is like 2011 to 2013 that, you had what were you doing for CSR? And so like when I like moved over into multifamily, the first thing I did when I went to like my manager, I said, hey, we need to do a CSR. We need to do a community social responsibility. And like, we were like, this is 2014. No one was doing it. So like, we did like a spring like cleaning and like we donated to the shelter. We've done like a coat drive when you're cleaning out your coats for the winter. We've done a coat drive. But we used to do like a big event called Phoenix Giving because we were called the Phoenix. And like, we would have you bring, you could donate 5 cans, which was equal about 5 pounds of food. And like you could pie myself and my manager in the face. Like you could pick which one you wanted to do. And like, and we wanted to, and so like we would donate 200 to 300 pounds of food each year to the local
Wow.
food bank. And like we would take the photos and do things like that. And like to me that was just the right thing to do, so I think it's kind of ironic that it's taken almost 10 years for other people to like catch up into that.
Yeah, and what's really interesting with that is that there have been communities, to your point, that have always done something. There's companies that have always done something, but now it's to the point where your renters are expecting you to make that public. And to, not only to do it, but to talk about it, to celebrate it, to show that you are that type of brand, that contributes to, making society better.
And I always like, and almost at like a no cost to the resident, because I know there are some companies that will like, it's $1 extra a month on your lease that like it goes towards XYZ. Like I don't think that they're expecting that. Like they're expecting you to kind of like be that brand and like kind of front that cost and not charge it back to them.
Right. That's a great point.
So, well, on that same lines, as we wrap into number 5, renters will be truth seekers.
Yeah, so this was something you and I kind of had a little dialogue about this when I posted about Gen Z. And I
Yep.
was saying that one of the things that I found interesting from our focus group that we did with Gen Z renters is that they do not like our photos and videos. They want them to stop. Like, please stop doing them. And you had asked, you were like, well, wait a minute, they're, videos, that's Gen Z, that's what they're all about. And so they still want them, right? They still want to see the apartment, they still want videos, but they want all of that done in a UGC kind of way. They want to see their, what an actual furnished live in apartment looks like. They want photos that aren't necessarily, your model with the nice, furnishings and whatnot. They can get that. Okay, fine. But what really kind of moves the needle with them is UGC. So when you think about them being truth seekers or renters being truth seekers, you have to look at the contributions that are being made by your renters, your existing residents, whether that's video, photos, their reviews, the feedback that you get from your zero party data, making sure that you have for the public as authentic of a depiction of what life is like in your community as possible. And a lot of times in our industry, we're scared of that because we are used to selling the model. We are used to making sure our photos look a certain way and, our message is on brand and all of this kind of stuff. However, that very curated, thoughtful, strategic kind of image is doing us a disservice when you have these renters who are demanding the truth. Now, if the truth is you're absolutely perfect, have at it. I don't know too
Just
many.
stop with the star so I can go see what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, let me know. I'll hop a plane and come check it out. But I don't know. But if that's what it is, okay, fine. But renters need a little dirt. And the reason, again, coming out of 2020, a lot of renters could no longer go into the store, purchase what they wanted. They had to do everything online. So they relied on reviews, they relied on photos, they relied on, whatever the company and advertisers wanted to put out there, only to be disappointed when they opened the box, right? So, because of that, because we've lived so long with those types of experiences, what I bought versus what I got, you can Google that and you see it all day, right? All
You
those
see
different.
like the TikToks of the people opening the boxes, like
Yeah, the
that's
unboxing, exactly. So it's because we've lived with those experiences, they're no longer going to settle for that, when it comes to their homes. And so again, you can't wait till 2025 to decide, okay, now we're going to get authentic and real. You got to be authentic and real and show a history of that that's just a normal, course of business or a normal strategy for your community. Take the highs and the lows. I'm speaking at a conference in Napa to talk about social media and Gen Z, and I have an example where there's a TikTok video, and the girl's like, "I think I found my new apartment," and she's driving up. There's like the marquee sign of the community. There's a comment from an existing renter that says, "Girl, run!" Like, girl, run. And the apartment community comes back and was like, "We agree, girl, you better run in here and get this apartment before it's gone." Like the way that they interacted was genius. And so someone else comes back and was like, "Well, what's wrong with the apartments?" The original commenter, the resident, was like, "It's actually not that bad. I was just having a bad day," or something like that. And it was totally like, you can't shy away from, the good, the bad, everything in between. You just have to be you. But I loved that community's response. They were like, "We agree, girl, you better run in here and get this apartment before it's gone." And it was so cute, that it just made it, it made an opportunity where if you saw this, you might want to, like, we're just not going to comment. We're not going to say anything. We're going to ignore it. But to engage with something that maybe was not like on brand, for you, or something you didn't want, someone to talk about your community and turn it into a positive thing. I just thought it was genius. I'm using it at like all the conferences that I'm speaking at this year because that's the way to do it.
when we were talking about like Gen Z, and I thought like when I like my generation, we grew up on MTV Cribs, and like and so like I remember I was like we did a whole contest because we needed some like we were going through a renovation, and so we did a Phoenix Cribs, and like
Yeah.
and like show us your crib, but then we had some other like your like favorite spot in like Sacramento, and like using one of the amenities, and like there, and then like you uploaded it to our Facebook page. This when Facebook was still big, right? And like we then, because it was on our page, we got to use that content and to show people like what these new apartments looked like as people were using them. So like I was like, wow, that was almost like 10 years ago now. That I'm like, so I'm glad to see like it's full circle, and like I might have to dust that out again.
Yeah, and on TikTok, you have a lot of influencers, if you will. They're showing like their penthouse apartments, and their beautiful views of the Manhattan River or whatever. But there's a trend now called realistic apartment tours, where people are showing like, here's my pile of laundry, here's my apartment. Yes, I got this secondhand, and everyone loves that realness that's there. There's a new app. Well, it's not new, it's a couple years old, but our industry has not yet jumped on it yet. It's called Be Real. I don't know if you've ever heard of
I've
it.
heard of this.
Oh my God, I love it. I love Be Real, where you sign up, you get an alert, you have 2 minutes. Everyone who's on the app has 2 minutes to post something. Can't be curated, has to be in the moment. It's the front and back of your camera. So, it shows like what you're doing in that moment. And the history that you create is just, I mean, when you look at, all of the things that you've posted, Chipotle is on it. Like, I'm not a Chipotle fan, but I'm a fan of how they use this app. So what they do is they post like a coupon code. Like, here's the code for the day. And so you have people that are like flocking to their Be Real to get like the free guac for the day or get the free, burrito bowl or whatever, So there's a lot of different things that we can do to be our authentic selves online. And it's okay, as an industry for us to get out of the mindset that everything has to be perfect.
Perfect. Well, Lia, thanks so much for joining me today and talking about these 2025 bold predictions. I'm going to make one myself, but I
Yeah.
think I'm going to have to do a couple years in advance, right? I think it's going to have to be like 2026, 2027, because I don't know if we're there. I think we're going to see a shift from leasing professional titles to like an experienced curator, where like we're seeing the whole process curated to just that resident and what that looks like. Like I'm heading off to DC in a couple days and I'm staying at the Conrad. They had already emailed me as like, what time's your arrival? Who else is staying for you? Like, and they are looking for that. So I think like, we're 5 to 7 years behind hospitality. And so like, I think that's 26, 2027 maybe. So you
I
have to
think
see it
that's
in your
safe.
study.
I think that's a safe prediction. I can see that happening. I can see the word experience being in the titles for our leasing teams in some kind of way. I wish I had it when I was leasing on site.
Me too. Well, I want to thank again to AppWork for sponsoring today's show. Imagine carrying a digital make ready board in your pocket with work order tracking and maintenance technician leaderboards designed to gamify the process and bring out your team's competitive best. AppWork offers solutions to headaches that have plagued the multifamily industry for decades. Visit www.appworkco.com. Again, that's www.appworkco.com today. Lia, thanks for joining me on Runes with Ronald and talking about these 2025 bold predictions. I can't wait to see them all come true and even some more. And to the listeners out there, tune in next time for another great episode. Until then, happy leasing.
Bye.
Bye.